G'day folks, welcome back to Aussie Outdoor Reviews. This video, we're going to be doing a quick lamb rotisserie on the Bunnings $85 Jumbuck. So, pop a cork, crack a can, or chuck on a brew, and let's get after it. The easiest way for a quick spin is buying some pre-marinated meat. And I picked this up this morning from Aldi's. It's 1.5 kilos, $30. And it's a boneless butterflied lamb leg, and it's seasoned here or marinated with rosemary and honey. Now, I've done this one before and it turned out just delicious. So essentially what we're going to be doing, slicing this up really thin. We're going to be adding some of our own ingredients, letting it marinate for a little while, and then we'll be loading up the rod and we're chucking her on to spin. So stick around guys, and I'll show you exactly how I go about making a delicious lamb. So, a little bit of tomato paste, doesn't matter what brand or anything like that, you know, just a couple of tablespoons, 2-3 tablespoons, that's enough, you know, whatever. You might add a little bit more, you know, once you've got your meat in there, depends how thinly you slice it. Next up, get a lemon, just, you know, in she goes, mate. Just the juice of one lemon. Now, you want to be pretty generous with the garlic. Now, I'm just using old garlic that's already sprouted from the cupboard, so it doesn't have to be too fancy. So that'll do for now. Now, you just want to crush that garlic. Next up, a bit of white onion, and you want to cut this up it's really for your own taste. So this will cook, it'll get all mixed in with the lamb when it's on the spit. So this will cook nicely. And what I've noticed that if you chop this up nice and fine, then it's more likely to stick to the outside of the lamb, and as it's spinning it'll caramelize up and it'll be just like. Okay, so your finely diced onion in the mix. The final ingredient for your marinade is just a little bit of pure honey. Now you don't want to put too much. If you do put too much when you're spinning and you're over the charcoal, your lamb will burn pretty quick. The sugar and the honey, it'll burn. So you just want to put a little bit in. And I am putting about 1/4 spoon of honey in there. The next step is to prepare the meat. I want to try and retain as much of the marinade that's in this vacuum sealed bag as possible. So I'll try and drain some of that out first, and then I will slice this up. So we'll start cutting, and it doesn't matter if it's not all the same thickness or shape or anything like that. You know, this is just basically cutting it as the meat allows. Okay, and you can see here I'm sort of cutting this, it's around 1 centimeter thick, and there's some little pockets of fat, and that's great. So that's what we'll do now. I'll go through and I'll cut this all up into strips like you can see here. Then we'll throw it in the marinade and I'll bring you back. All right, so now we add our lamb into the marinade, and you might be looking at that and going, well, there's a lot of onion, and I have to be honest, that is the way I like it. With that caramelized onion on the rotisserie, you betcha, she's bloody beautiful. So make sure you get everything in. And at this stage, you really want to make sure that you have some paper towel on hand because it's messy, and a paper towel is just a game changer and a lifesaver at this point. And then we just work that marinade through the meat and we let it rest. Now, I'm gonna leave this to rest for probably 45 minutes to an hour. I'm gonna just cover it with some cling film, and I'm gonna leave it out of the fridge. And the reason that I leave it out of the fridge is that it's not cold when I load it up onto the rotisserie rod. time to prep the rod for the meat. You get your first fork, slide it on and tighten down the grub screw. You're going to want to make this pretty tight because we're going to be changing to this orientation with the rod, and we're going to be feeding the meat from the top down. So you want to make sure that this is tight. Now, you can go to Bunnings and you can get these additional discs called Gyros discs, and they look great. You can also use an onion. You can cut the onion in half and you can slide the onion on, and so that the flat face is facing towards the meat, and it just helps hold the meat on, you know, rather than the rod and the fork. But to be honest, I've done the onion trick in the past, and it's just a waste of an onion in my opinion. You take the extra time, you load it on the fork properly, and you're good to go. So one thing I do recommend though is getting a pair of pliers. In this case, I use my Leatherman, and I just cinch down this retaining screw just to keep it nice and tight for when I am loading it from the top down. Okay, so let's get started. Now this is a messy process, so make sure that you have a good work surface, and also make sure that you have enough paper towel. And it's as simple as, folks, start with a nice big piece. You want to find one end of it, you're going to slowly push it down over the top. Now, sometimes this takes a little bit of extra effort because the point here, well, it's not really a point. It's, you know, it's blunt. So it may take a little bit of extra force, and of course, being lamb, it's nice and marinated and slippery. So you want to just fold it over like that. Now, it doesn't matter if there's bits dripping off or hanging off. In fact, that's kind of what I recommend, because these sort of crisp up, and as it's rotating on the rotisserie, you can nip yourself a little sample. So then you just slide them down, and you want to rest it on the fork like that. And then you just repeat that process. So let's get going. There we have it. The lamb's all loaded on the rod. I've installed the second fork, I've pushed it down tight, and I've used my Leatherman to tighten up that grub screw. So all we're waiting for now is the charcoal to come up to temp, and then we'll go and install the rod. The rule of thumb for cooking on the Jumbuck, you want your meat at a height where you can hold your hand over the coals for 2 to 3 seconds. You know, any less than that, it's too hot. Raise it up. You know, if you can hold it in for longer than that, then it's too cool. You want to put your meat down closer to the coals. Or you need to add coals if you haven't got enough in. I'd say that's about perfect for now. As these coals die down though, I will have to continually check, and I'll have to lower the meat accordingly. That's it. Let's just kick back. Let's have a beer, a wine, a coffee, a Coke, whatever your preference is. Let's sit back and watch this meat spin away. I reckon it's going to take about an hour. So we're ready to do the first trim. This is going to be something that we do throughout the cook. As soon as, you know, your the pieces that are hanging down a little bit lower, as they start to crisp up, you're going to want to take them off, otherwise they're going to just turn to charcoal and be well and truly overcooked. I find a short knife helps here. The short knife, if you do need to cut underneath your forks here, it's easy to get it in. And all the fat starting to render down nicely on these external pieces. It can be a bit tough to grab with the tongs, although it's really quite hot. It's too hot to touch with your hands. So that's what you want to do, is just go around, take off any of these sort of, you know, leading edges that are crisping up, revealing the undercooked meat below. So there we have it. That's our first cut. As you can see now, there's some pink
pink meat there exposed to the rotisserie or to the charcoal, and that'll cook up. And so yeah, and that's the process. You just let it cook, take your trim, let it cook, take your trim, until you get down to that final layer that if you cut off too much, the whole thing's gonna fall off. And at that point, my recommendation is just let it crisp up nice and crispy and cut it all off in one go. So there you have it. I've taken another cut off. I'm going to throw it on for about another 5-10 minutes just to crisp up what's remaining there on the spit. And that's good to go for some beautiful wraps there. So thanks everyone for watching. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.